What's up, nerds? I'm Kendrick, your not-so-friendly neighborhood otaku, and welcome to my channel where I talk all things anime, manga, manhwa, and webcomics. If that's the type of thing you're into, then subscribe because I'll put one video out every Thursday to Saturday at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard, and 2 to 3 shorts of anime commentary out every Monday to Wednesday, also at 1 p.m. Today we're going to be continuing the series where I go back and read the Jujutsu Kaisen manga over from the beginning and bring you all along with me. As always, this series is great for anyone who's a first-time JJK fan, anime only, who wants to get caught up, or who, like me, as the series progresses, begins forgetting some of those smaller moments and key details from earlier on in the series. So without further ado, let's get into Volume 10. In Chapter 80, Kokichi calls an army of Megamarus to his side as his confrontation with Sudogero and Mahito escalates. Sudogero offers his help, but Mahito says that Kokichi's his toy, then enlarges his arm and smashes away the army of Megamarus. Kokichi disappears in the confusion, and Mahito assumes he ran away since he doesn't really have a reason to kill them. Suddenly, the underground lair collapses, forcing Mahito to escape outside. There, he looks at the lake with an excited smile as the armored puppet Ultimate Mechamaru Mode Absolute appears ready to fight. Mahito's impressed that Kokichi was working on something like this during his time as a shut-in, but quickly realizes Kokichi is piloting the giant cursed corpse from within its head. As he's doing his final checkups on the operating system, Kokichi notices a curtain and figures Sudogero is the caster. Kokichi realizes he needs to contact Gojo to warn them about the Shibuya plans, but he has to deal with Mahito first. Although he knows the odds are stacked against him, Kokichi plans to use the cursed energy he's been accumulating for the past 16 years. He starts off with a year worth of cursed energy and blasts Mahito with Ultra Cannon, but both Mahito and Kokichi know these attacks won't be enough to damage Mahito. Mahito then dodges another strike and dives into the water. Kokichi then uses a 2-year charge of cursed energy, blasting the lake with Miracle Cannon, but Mahito leaps from the water, ready to strike. Kokichi notices Mahito isn't paying attention to his cursed corpse's attacks and puts his secret plan into motion. In Chapter 81, Mahito extends his arm and strikes Mechamaru Absolute's head with a cursed-infused punch. It's a direct hit that vigorously shakes the cockpit. Kokichi notes if he's not careful, Mahito will break his armored cursed corpse apart. With 4 chances left, Kokichi inserts a tube into one of the side panels and activates a cursed technique charge. Mechamaru's finger splits open to reveal a small cannon, and it shoots a spiked projectile that hits Mahito in his wing as he flies around. Initially, Mahito doesn't see this as a threat, but his wing explodes, leaving him open to get smacked by Mechamaru. Mahito crashes into the forest, confused as to how his soul was destroyed. Mechamaru then unleashes a series of rapid-fire punches on the forested area, forcing Mahito to fly away in a bird-like form. Kokichi notices Mahito reshaping himself in order to hide his injury, giving Kokichi confidence that he can win. Even Sudogero, who's still spectating, acknowledges that Kokichi is skilled and his strategies are working against Mahito. Next, Kokichi uses a 5-year charge, Vision Viola, to send 5 cannons of cursed energy towards Mahito. Mahito shapeshifts to avoid the beams, but he's taken by surprise when Mechamaru attacks him from above. He nearly avoids getting smashed, but Mechamaru follows up with a strike that sends him flying back into the forested area. Believing he can win, Kokichi activates another cursed technique charge, reshaping Mechamaru's finger into a spike. However, the worst-case scenario occurs when Mahito activates his domain expansion self-embodiment of perfection. In Chapter 82, we learn Idol Transfiguration automatically hits within Mahito's domain even without Mahito making direct contact. Then Ultimate Mechamaru Mode Absolute collapses, signaling Kokichi's demise. Mahito questions if Kokichi underestimated him, thinking he'd conserve his energy with only 10 days left until Halloween. Confident in his automatic win strategy within his domain, Mahito turns his back to the giant cursed corpse and begins to walk away. Suddenly, Mechamaru stabs the spike on his middle finger through Mahito's back and lifts him in the air, fully piercing through his stomach. Mahito looks back confused and meets Kokichi's glare from within Mechamaru's cockpit. During the Heian era, a Jujutsu sorcerer looking to protect their followers from evil curses and curse users developed a certain technique. This technique is used to protect oneself from a domain expansion and is known as the Domain for the Weak or Simple Domain. Kokichi had 4 tubes of sealed curse technique that contained new shadow-style Simple Domain. The first failed, the second protected the cockpit, and the third appears to be finishing Mahito off. Sudogero's impressed that Kokichi managed to use Simple Domain to neutralize Mahito's domain expansion. Then Kokichi turns his weapons towards Sudogero, prepared to use his remaining 9 years of accumulated cursed energy to fight him. However, as he gets ready to fire, the cockpit abruptly crumbles away from the impact of Mahito's enlarged fist. Horrified, Kokichi looks out to see Mahito's deranged smile, wondering if he missed his chance. With 1 tube of domain left, Kokichi plans to get Mahito with a direct hit. But Mahito uses a millipede-like form to crawl through the hole that he punched in Mechamaru's cockpit. As their hands pass each other, we flash back to Kokichi talking to Miwa about her planning to visit him and getting to know him better. She made a promise to come visit him one day, but Mahito destroyed that future. Mechamaru collapses for good, with Kokichi's blood dripping out of the puppet's giant head. Mahito and Sudogero begin leaving as Mahito claims it all went according to plan. Then, the fateful day, October 31st, 2018, arrives in Shibuya. In Chapter 83, the Shibuya Incident begins at 7 p.m. when a curtain is cast that only traps civilians. Jujutsu sorcerers can move through it as they please, but the reception is blocked, meaning all communication has to take place outside of the curtain. Yujichi informs the Nanami team about the situation outside the curtain, while Takuma tells Megami more about the curtain. Conditions added to the curtain generally revolve around curses, so reception being blocked is a secondary effect. Nanami tells Takuma that Megami is smart and to stop showing off, then asks where Gojo is. Meanwhile, just outside the Shibuya Mark City entrance, there's nobody outside the usually busy intersection in front of the station. Something bad went down and everyone near the perimeter of the curtain keeps asking the same thing: bring Satoru Gojo. Akari relays this information to the Zenin team comprised of Nobara, Maki, and Naobito, the head of the Zenin family. Naobito knows the non-sorcerers were told to say that since non-sorcerers shouldn't know who Gojo is. Since the curtain allows sorcerers from either side, it's extremely tough and impossible to break with brute force. So the ideal strategy is to neutralize the curse user who cast the curtain. However, each team is on standby now since the higher-ups decided Gojo should work alone to minimize damage. The Kusakabe team, which consists only of Panda and Atsuya Kusakabe, wait outside and he tells Panda that Mei has a team too. All teams are assigned to secure the perimeter of the curtain and take care of anything that may slip past Gojo. Panda understands wanting to minimize sorcerer injuries while they can't communicate inside the curtain, but wonders about civilians. Kusakabe notes that inside the curtain is relatively peaceful, and while civilians are panicked, there's no curse user or curse spirit attacking them. Even though it appears calm, Kusakabe says he's not going back in there since there are several special grade curses in the basement of the building. Inside the curtain, the civilians dressed in their Halloween costumes pound on the curtain demanding Gojo be brought there. They want Gojo to arrive so they can leave, and they're quickly losing their patience. Two girls compare it to a horror movie where they're trapped, but say it's no big deal. But another guy tells them that people were sucked into the station while they were waiting at the intersection. And at 8:31 p.m., Gojo arrives inside the curtain to see hundreds of Halloween-clad civilians huddled together. After analyzing the situation, Gojo realizes the curtain originates from somewhere lower, then heads towards the lowest level basement where the subway operates. At Aoyama Cemetery, the Mei team awaits further instructions. Yuji is eager to help, and Mei surmises they'll be called in as backup shortly. Mei's younger brother, Ui, feels that she shouldn't be used in such a way, but knows that she cares more about work, well, money, than her family. They then get a message that another curtain has appeared to coincide with Gojo's arrival. With this, Mei's team runs towards the Meiji Jingumai station where it formed. Gojo descends to the Tokyo Metro BF5 level where he's confronted by Jogo, Hanami, and Choso. Gojo tells Jogo not to have an excuse this time, but Jogo says the strongest sorcerer should have his first ever excuse ready. In Chapter 84, Gojo sees Hanami's roots blocking all possible exits and confidently assures the three special grade curses that he wasn't leaving anyway. Gojo notes that if he leaves, the curses will massacre everyone, and Jogo emphatically replies that he'll gladly slaughter all of these humans even if Gojo stays. Then everyone standing on the outside lanes of the platform are forced onto the tracks surrounding the four of them. Gojo nonchalantly tells the civilians to stay out of his way if they don't want to die, then realizes that blocking the exits created a blind spot so he can't break through in case there are people on the other side. Then Jogo burns through several civilians as Hanami follows, and Choso attacks with blood manipulation slicing exorcism. Both Hanami and Jogo go to attack Gojo but are stopped by his infinity. They then activate domain amplification to strengthen their technique, forcing Gojo to dodge. Normal barriers are meant to trap their opponent in a box, but domain amplification metaphorically surrounds their opponent with water. With this method, the curses can neutralize infinity. Prior to the Shibuya incident, Tsurugeru told his allies that Gojo works best when he's alone. No matter how strong the ally, anyone who fights alongside him just gets in his way. So they're using non-sorcerers to restrict his movements more and render him incapable of using his curse technique, since it's nearly impossible for there to be no collateral damage. The plan is to kill time and have Gojo think of countermeasures for 20 minutes while Tsurugeru prepares the prison realm. Then Jogo snatches someone's head off and reminds Gojo that he can't run away. But Gojo says he's surprised Jogo thought he could beat him with his sorry excuse for a brain. With this, Gojo reveals his 6 eyes and points to Hanami, saying that since it's their 3rd time meeting, he's going down first. In Chapter 85, Jogo and Hanami are intimidated by Gojo's threats, despite telling him not to run away. Gojo then walks right up to Jogo, ignoring Hanami beside him. They both move to attack, but Gojo avoids Hanami's strike and snaps Jogo's arm clean off. He uses it to block Hanami's follow-up attack and continues to chase after Jogo. Hanami realizes that Gojo made the threat earlier to confuse them, and that he's completely deactivated his limitless technique. Hanami questions if Gojo plans to abandon focusing on his cursed technique to fight in close quarters with cursed energy. Hanami plans to activate his innate technique, but this turns out to be a fatal mistake. Jogo turns and yells at Hanami, telling him not to deactivate his domain amplification as Gojo turns around to grab the tree branches in his eye sockets. Gojo says he's heard that's Hanami's weak spot, then forcibly rips the tree branches completely out. Gojo knew the curses wouldn't be able to use their innate technique and barrier technique at the same time. And Jogo realized he only survived earlier because his barrier technique was protecting him. Shocked by how strong Gojo is while only using curse manipulation and physical attacks, Jogo runs away in fear. Choso then attempts to hit Gojo with his blood manipulation, taking several civilians out along the way, but it's stopped by his infinity. Gojo recognizes Choso as one of the cursed wombs, but he decides to ignore him for now and deal with the more proactive curses. Jogo and Hanami attack him again with their domain amplification, but Gojo counters by strengthening his infinity since Hanami is in a weakened state. Gojo turns to Hanami and crushes him against a wall with his expanded Limitless. Jogo tries to divert his attention by threatening civilians, but Gojo does not hesitate to crush Hanami completely, annihilating the curse and leaving nothing but a giant crater left in the wall. With Hanami exorcised, Gojo turns to meet Jogo's gaze and claims he's next. Near exit 2 of the Meiji Jingumai station, an auxiliary manager meets with the Meimei team to debrief them on the current situation. Between the two curtains is a caster who's taking that risk to strengthen the barrier. 2 other managers have already been taken out, and between the barrier there's several transmogrified humans. Hearing this, Yuji recalls Mahito's face. In chapter 86, Meimei manipulates crows with her curse technique and orders them to scout out the Meiji Jingumai station. She can share vision with them and sends multiple crows inside to search before her team moves in. Yuji is anxious to help, but Ui tells him to be quiet so his sister can concentrate. Meimei finishes up and asks Yuji if he would rather kill a bunch of weak, transfigured humans or exercise one strong cursed spirit. She knows he prefers the latter and explains that there are 5 basement levels in the station and the curtain is above B1F. Transfigured humans are killing civilians on B4F and forcing them down to B5F of the Fukutushin line platform. The curtain restricts sorcerers from entering the B5F platform, and some of Meimei's crows were taken out between B1F and B2F, meaning that's most likely where the caster is. Yuji asks if Mahito is on B5F, but Meimei isn't sure, although she says it's very likely considering the transfigured humans there. So Meimei and Yuji plan to enter through opposite sides of the station. Their best case scenario is if the curtain is lifted and they figure out their enemy's objective by the time they meet back up. Yuji assures Meimei this will be the case because he's done with losing. At 9:03 p.m. in the Meiji Jingumai station, Yuji finds a grasshopper curse devouring a man's head. The curse asks what he's looking at, then realizes Yuji is a Jujutsu sorcerer. Yuji asks if Patchface is here, and the curse reveals that Mahito is down below. Previously, Gojo told Yuji that barrier techniques can be difficult even for strong Jujutsu sorcerers with innate techniques, so he highly doubts the grasshopper is casting the curtains. He then realizes the grasshopper appears to be guarding a mysterious stake sticking out of the ground, and that the curse said he was protecting the curtain, meaning that the stake sticking out of the ground is his target. The grasshopper curse tells Yuji that transfigured humans don't taste as good as regular humans, which annoys Yuji, who kicks the curse into the wall and it cracks from impact. He quickly follows up with a straight punch to the grasshopper's side and says that curses need to stop looking down on humans. The grasshopper says that Yuji must not be too smart and those who aren't smart must die. He then asks Yuji what type of curse he thinks he is, and Yuji's able to pick up on the obvious answer, which makes the grasshopper curse think he's smart. In chapter 87, we learn that the grasshopper curse came about from the fear and resentment of people from the grasshopper plague. This curse has crazy jumping and biting powers, but Yuji's able to avoid the attacks while recognizing that it's a strong curse since it can communicate. The curse tries to punch Yuji, but he continues to avoid getting hit. Yuji recognizes the curse wants to keep the fight in close quarters since it has 4 arms and uses its biting power to fight directly. The grasshopper curse asks if Yuji's smart, and he says smart people don't brag about being smart, which shocks the curse. Their fight continues and they exchange blows with one another as the grasshopper believes he has the upper hand because in a numbers game he has 2 more arms. But Yuji overpowers him and pummels him with his superior skills. The grasshopper curse attempts to shoot black mucus at Yuji, but he ducks and plans to hit him with an uppercut. Grasshoppers have expandable abdomens to lay eggs deep in the ground, so the grasshopper attempts to hit Yuji with the extended hard tip while he's down low. But Yuji is faster and he knocks the appendage aside before chopping it off completely. Yuji can't forgive the curse for eating people and exorcises him immediately, before breaking the stake and undoing the barrier. Meanwhile, Meimei kills the transfigured humans on B4F and saves the civilians there. Then Uyu informs her that the barrier has been broken and she says they should stay there and wait to regroup before heading down to B5F. Below them, Mahito prepares to board the train to the Shibuya station as he notices the grasshopper curse has been defeated. In chapter 88, Jogo huffs frantically for air as he tries to run away from Gojo, stumbling through the platform. Gojo follows closely behind with a dark and menacing presence, while Choso quietly tries to hide among the chaos of the crowd of civilians while his ally is in a panic. Jogo tries to push people in Gojo's way and strike him from behind, but the infinity stops people mid-air and Jogo's punch. Jogo doesn't want Hanami's death to be in vain, and he tells Chozo he'll kill him if he doesn't help. Chozo nonchalantly shoots 3 blood arrows from a good distance down the platform, killing a civilian, but they're stopped by Gojo's infinity. Gojo takes note of Chozo's location, but decides to ignore him since his technique's range is probably reaching its limit. Non-sorcerers who can't see curses are beginning to avoid Gojo, and if they continue to create an open space, Gojo should be able to spot Jogo. Gojo knows he can't save everyone, but he promises to exorcise all of the curses and avenge them in return. Jogo thinks that 20 minutes have passed and wonders what's taking Sudogeto so long. Meanwhile, Sudogeto says that it's still too easy for Gojo. They need him on edge more before he makes his move. At Meiji Jingumai Station B4F, the Meimei team regroups with Yuji before heading down to B5F. On the way down, Meimei commends Yuji, saying he's on par with a grade 1 sorcerer. He's the first she's known since Kusakabe to be this skilled without an innate technique. Yuji replies by revealing that Mahito wasn't on B2F, and Uiui sternly tells him to graciously accept his sister's compliment. They reach B5F and find a civilian there, but his head transfigures and he dies, confirming to Yuji that Mahito was there. Before the man died, he mentioned that everyone boarded the train headed towards Gojo. When the train arrives at the station, some civilians attempt to get on and flee, but it's full of transfigured humans who begin attacking them. Gojo watches on in horror as Mahito hops off of the train to greet Jogo. Then Jogo reveals that Hanami has been exorcised, surprising Mahito. And that is volume 10 of Jujutsu Kaisen. As always, thank you to everyone who made it all the way to the end. I know these videos can be a little bit lengthy since they're fairly in-depth and complete synopses for each of the volumes. That is all for today though, and I will see you next time.